They say trust is earned, not given. I learned that lesson in a London hotel room at 4 a.m. when my wife's email arrived. Divorce papers attached. Selling your father's house. She thought I'd beg. Instead, I typed 2 words that would destroy her completely. Go ahead. What she didn't know. My father survived Vietnam by never trusting anyone. And the legal fortress he built to protect our family was about to crush her like an insect. My name is Thaddeus Cunningham. They'll most call me Thad. I'm 51 and Executive Vice President at Thornfield Pharmaceuticals. 23 years building this career, from lab supervisor to the executive suite. The work demands everything, brutal hours, constant travel. But when you help bring life-saving drugs to market, it feels worth it. I met Delilah 16 years ago at a medical conference in San Diego. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep, beautiful, ambitious, with a disarming smile. We married after 8 months. I already had 2 kids from my first marriage, Jameson, 10 at the time, and Adelaide, 7. Their mother Patricia had died from ovarian cancer 2 years earlier. I was drowning in grief and single parenthood. Delilah seemed like a lifeline. She wanted the lifestyle more than the life itself. The Westchester house, country club membership, luxury cars, Caribbean trips. Within 3 years, she'd quit her job to be present for my children. What she actually did was yoga classes, wine tastings, and building an Instagram wellness brand. I should have paid attention to how she talked about my father's property. The old man passed 4 years ago, leaving a modest house on 3 acres in Millbrook, upstate New York, worth maybe $133,000. Not much, but priceless to me. Dad bought it with his first paycheck after Vietnam. He raised me and my 2 brothers there. Every room held memories. Delilah visited twice. Both times she complained about the outdated kitchen, no central air, depressing wood paneling. She'd ask why I didn't just sell it. I'd brush her off, saying I wasn't ready. What I didn't tell her. The property was in an irrevocable trust Dad established to prevent exactly what she had in mind. The morning everything changed, I stood in a conference room at the Lancaster Hotel in London, watching dawn over Hyde Park. I'd just spent 16 hours negotiating final terms on a $1.8 million licensing agreement with a British biotech firm. Career-defining moment. The kind that gets you noticed at the highest levels. Exhausted but exhilarated, my phone buzzed. Email, notification. I expected congratulations from our CEO. Instead, moving forward, divorce papers attached. The sender was Delilah. I opened it, pulse hammering. The email was brief, almost cheerful. Thad, I filed for divorce. Papers attached. I'm also selling your father's house in Millbrook for $133,000. I've already accepted an offer. This is my chance to finally live the life I deserve instead of being stuck in your shadow. Sale closes in 2 weeks. Delilah. No explanation. No apology. Just cold announcement while I was 4,000 miles away. For 10 seconds, I felt punched. Then shock gave way to cold clarity. Delilah made a critical mistake. She assumed because Dad left me the house, it was mine to sell. She assumed marriage gave her claim to it. Most importantly, she assumed I hadn't protected Dad's legacy. I typed 2 words, go ahead, then forwarded her email to my attorney Ruth Kellerman, who'd handled Dad's estate. Added 1 line. She just activated the protection clause. Proceed as discussed. Ruth responded within minutes. On it. This is going to be interesting. I pocketed my phone, straightened my tie, walked back where my British counterparts waited with champagne. As I raised my glass and smiled for photographs, I felt something I hadn't in years. Complete certainty about what came next. Delilah wanted to play games with my father's legacy. She was about to discover some games have rules she never bothered to learn. The flight back from London gave me 12 hours to think. I didn't sleep, didn't watch movies, just sat there reviewing every conversation, every decision, every moment that led to Delilah thinking she could dismantle my father's legacy while I was out of the country. Ruth Kellerman met me at JFK. She's 62, gray hair pulled back tight, eyes that missed nothing. We'd worked together since Dad's passing, and she'd been the one who insisted on bulletproof trust documents. She's already started, Ruth said, sliding into my town car. Called the title company yesterday. Told them she had authorization to sell as your spouse. I looked out the window at Queens rolling past. What did they say? They asked for the trust transfer release. She got confused, started talking about marital property rights. Ruth allowed herself a thin smile. That's when they called me. My father, Thomas Cunningham, had survived Vietnam, built a small construction business, and raised 3 sons on his own after Mom died. He wasn't educated, but he was smart, especially about protecting what mattered. When he drew up his will, he'd insisted on an irrevocable trust for the Millbrook property. Why can't I just leave it to you directly? I'd asked him. Because someday you might marry someone who sees dollar signs instead of memories, Dad had said. This way, nobody can touch it without the trustee's approval. Not your wife. Not your creditors. Nobody. The trustee was Ruth. The trust required dual signatures for any sale, mine and hers. Delilah's name appeared nowhere in the documents. But there was more, something we'd added after I married Delilah, after I'd noticed how she talked about the property. Tell me about the protection clause, I said. Ruth pulled out a folder. Page 14, Section C. Any unauthorized attempt to sell, transfer, or encumber trust property by a non-beneficiary triggers immediate breach notification to all parties, including law enforcement if fraud is suspected. And Delilah signed an affidavit when you refinanced your Westchester house 3 years ago. Page 9. She acknowledged in writing that she understood the Millbrook property was held in irrevocable trust and that she had 0 ownership interest. I remembered that refinancing. Stack of papers 2 inches thick. Delilah had barely glanced at them, too busy planning her next wine country trip. She'd initialed everything without reading a word. So, when she told the title company she had authority, she committed documented fraud. Ruth finished. And when she accepted money from a buyer for property she doesn't own and can't legally sell, she potentially violated multiple statutes. My phone buzzed. Text from Jameson, my son. Dad, Delilah cleared out the wine cellar in your study. Moving trucks came this morning. Adelaide tried to stop them. They wouldn't listen. I showed Ruth. She nodded. Expected. She's liquidating assets before you can freeze accounts. How much was in the wine cellar? About $40,000 in collectibles. Study had some art, first editions. Maybe another $30,000. I typed back to Jameson. Don't engage. Document everything. Photos, videos. I'm handling it. Ruth made notes. That helps. Shows intent to strip marital assets. Strengthens your position. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Ruth said, Thad, I need to ask. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we file the paperwork I've prepared, there's no walking it back. She'll face serious legal consequences. I thought about my father's house. The porch where he taught me to tie fishing knots. The kitchen where he made Sunday pancakes. The living room where we watched Giants games. Every memory Delilah wanted to erase for $133,000, so she could fund whatever new life she'd imagined. File everything, I said. She made her choice when she hit send on that email. Ruth nodded, pulling out her laptop. Then let's walk through what happens next. First, I'm notifying the title company that any sale is void. Second, I'm filing emergency motions to freeze your joint accounts and prevent asset dissipation. Third, I'm sending Delilah's attorney a courtesy copy of her signed affidavit along with the trust documents. When I sent the title company notice before I picked you up. The motions get filed in 2 hours. Her attorney gets the package by end of business today. What do you think she'll do? Ruth closed her laptop. Panic. Then she'll call her attorney. He'll review the affidavit, realize she lied to him about having ownership rights, and his voice will shake when he calls you to ask what you want. And what do I want? That's up to you. But if it were my father's house, I'd want her to understand that some things aren't for sale at any price. The car pulled up to my Westchester house. Delilah's Mercedes was gone. So was most of the furniture I could see through the windows. I looked at Ruth. Make her understand. She smiled. Consider it done. Delilah's attorney called 48 hours after I landed. Mitchell Brennan, mid-40s, decent Westchester reputation. I let it ring twice. Thaddeus Cunningham. I answered. Mr. Cunningham, Mitchell Brennan. I represent Delilah Cunningham. His voice had an edge, something tight. I need to discuss the Millbrook property. What about it? 3 seconds of silence. I've reviewed the trust documents your attorney provided, and the affidavit my client signed in 2020. And, Mr. Cunningham, he exhaled slowly. What did you do? The question wasn't angry. It was afraid. I forwarded her email to my attorney. Ruth handled the rest. The trust documents, the signed waiver, the title company rejection, the fraud notification to the county prosecutor. His professional composure was fracturing. My client told me she had marital property rights. Said you'd verbally agreed to sell. Never mentioned an irrevocable trust. She lied, or never understood what she signed. Either way, not my problem. It's very much your problem if you're pursuing criminal charges. I provided documentation to appropriate authorities. They'll decide if her actions constitute fraud. Brennan was quiet. When he spoke again, his voice changed. What do you want? To make this go away? I thought about Dad's house. About Delilah's email while I celebrated in London. About furniture stripped from my home. Your client made a calculated decision to sell my father's property while I was overseas. She forged authority she didn't have. Accepted money for property she can't deliver. That's fraud, Mr. Brennan. This is vindictive. This is protective. My father built that trust specifically to prevent someone like Delilah from liquidating family property. What did you do? He asked again, different this time. Almost awed. I said go ahead. Then let her walk into the trap she didn't know existed. He hung up. Ruth called immediately. That was cold, Thad. He needed to understand. She will. Her attorney's explaining she's facing fraud charges, loss of marital assets, zero claim to the property. Reality's hitting. I looked at Dad's photo. Vietnam uniform. Young and serious. Good. Let hit. Adelaide called that evening, voice shaking with anger. Dad, Delilah showed up at my apartment. Crying. Saying you're destroying her. Wants me to convince you to drop the fraud complaint. There's no complaint yet. Just notification to prosecutors. She says you tricked her into signing documents she didn't understand. Addie, she signed an affidavit 3 years ago explicitly acknowledging the Millbrook property was an irrevocable trust. She initialed it. Notary witnessed it. That's documentation, not trickery. She claims you rushed her. Signing took 2 hours. Notary read everything aloud. Delilah spent most of it texting about yoga retreats. I paused. What else? She says you froze her accounts. Left her with nothing. I froze joint accounts after she cleared $40,000 in wine and $30,000 in art from my study. Emergency motion after documented removal. Adelaide went quiet. Dad, I need to tell you something. 2 years ago, Delilah offered me $50,000. My stomach tightened. For what? To convince you to remove Jameson and me from your will. She said it was time to prioritize your current family over adult children. Adelaide's voice broke. I told her to go to hell. Jameson and I decided not to tell you because we didn't want to blow up your marriage. 2 years ago, when Delilah stopped asking questions. When she started talking about Millbrook more. Positioning herself. It's not your fault, Addie. What are you going to do? Forward this to Ruth. Attempting to manipulate beneficiaries shows premeditation. Strengthens the fraud case significantly. Will she go to jail? Probably not. But she'll face real consequences. Good. She tried to erase us, Dad. Like Mom never existed. Like Grandpa's house meant nothing. After hanging up, I forwarded everything to Ruth. Additional evidence of premeditation. Beneficiary manipulation 2 years before fraud attempt. Ruth's response. This changes everything. She wasn't impulsive. She was systematic. Jameson called an hour later, exhausted. Delilah's attorney called. Wanted me to testify you're controlling and vengeful. What did you say? That you tried to bribe Adelaide. Treated Grandpa's house like garbage. Cleared out family property while you were overseas. He paused. He hung up fast. How bad will this get? I looked at Ruth's documents. Trust papers. Affidavits. Bank freezes. Machinery of consequence grinding forward. Worse before better. For Delilah, anyway. You okay? 16-year marriage disintegrating. Wife revealed as opportunist. Life temporarily displaced. Better than fine, I said honestly. This needed to happen. Sitting alone afterward, I felt unexpected relief. Not happiness. Just relief that pretending was over. Ruth called 3 days later with news I hadn't expected. Thad, we need to talk about Delilah's social media presence. Specifically, her Instagram account. I was in my temporary apartment, reviewing pharmaceutical trial data. What about it? She has 83,000 followers. Posts about wellness, luxury lifestyle, wine culture. Very polished, very aspirational. Ruth paused and completely fabricated. Explain. I hired a digital forensics specialist after Adelaide mentioned Delilah's constant phone use. Turns out 68,000 of those followers are purchase bots. The engagement, likes, comments, mostly fake accounts she's paying a company in Bangladesh $3,000 monthly to maintain. $3,000 a month? From where? Joint accounts. Tagged as marketing consulting. Been going on for 4 years. That $144,000 of marital assets spent on fake internet popularity. I set down my pen. She was building a brand. Trying to. She pitched herself to wine companies, wellness retreats, luxury hotels as an influencer. Wanted sponsorship deals. Problem is, real companies do follower audits. They all rejected her because the engagement was obviously fake. How'd you find this? Her laptop. She left it at the house when she cleared out. I got a warrant to search it as part of the asset dissipation investigation. Ruth's voice took on an edge. Thad, she kept spreadsheets. Lists of what she spent, what she claimed to spend. She wrote off your wine collection as content props for brand building. The art from your study. Lifestyle staging materials. She was planning to sell my belongings and call it business expenses. Exactly. And there's more. Found emails to her friend group. Women you've entertained at your house, whose husbands you've helped with pharmaceutical contacts. She called you the walking checkbook and emotionally absent money machine. The word should have stung. They didn't. They clarified. What else? Draft posts she never published. One from 8 months ago. Sometimes the life you're living is just the price you pay for the life you're planning. Another from last year. Patience is knowing your time is coming. Ruth let that sink in. She was documenting her own premeditation. Can we use this? Already compiling it. Shows systematic planning, asset conversion, fraudulent misrepresentation of expenses. Combined with the trust fraud and beneficiary manipulation, this becomes a pattern of financial predation spanning years. Prosecutors will want this. They already do. I forwarded preliminary findings this morning. They're expanding the investigation beyond the Millbrook fraud to potential wire fraud and tax evasion. I walked to my window, looked out at Westchester County. Somewhere out there, Delilah was realizing her carefully constructed facade was collapsing. What's her next move? Brennan will try to negotiate. Offer to drop property claims in exchange for dropping criminal referrals. Standard damage control. And our response? We don't negotiate with people who try to steal family property and called your father's house a disposable asset in private emails. She actually wrote that, word for word. Found it in a message to her sister 6 months ago. Context was complaining that you wouldn't sell Millbrook to fund a wine country vacation rental investment she wanted to make. My father's house. The place where he taught me to fish, to fix things, to understand that value isn't always measured in dollars. Delilah saw it as venture capital for her fantasy life. Ruth, make sure prosecutors see everything. The spreadsheets, the emails, the fake followers, all of it. Already done. This woman systematically exploited your marriage for years. Time she faces accountability. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and pulled up Delilah's Instagram. The most recent post showed her wine tasting, glass raised, caption reading, grateful for new beginnings and authentic living. Hashtag blessed, hashtag wine lover, hashtag living me truth. 23 comments, all from accounts with random number usernames and 0 posts. All fake, all purchased, all part of an empire built on nothing but my money and her delusions. I closed the laptop and called Jameson. Son, I need you to do something for me. What's that? He asked. Document every business contact I helped Delilah make. Every pharmaceutical exec I introduced her to when she was trying to get sponsorships. Every connection I facilitated. Why? Because she used my professional reputation to commit fraud. And those people deserve to know what they were really dealing with. Dad, that's going to burn her completely. Nobody in the industry will touch her. Good, I said. She burned herself. I'm just making sure everyone sees the ashes. The sister arrived unannounced. Monica, Delilah's older sister, showed up at my temporary apartment on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I almost didn't let her in. Mr. Cunningham, please. 5 minutes. She stood in my doorway, hair wet, looking nothing like the polished woman I'd met at family gatherings. I need to tell you something about Delilah. Against my better judgment, I let her inside. Monica sat on my couch, hands clasped tight. I need you to know I had no idea what she was planning. The property thing, the divorce ambush, none of it. Why are you here, Monica? Because my sister is a liar, and I'm tired of covering for her. She looked up, eyes red. You need to know about the miscarriage. My chest tightened. What miscarriage? The one she told you about. 3 years ago, right before Christmas. She said she lost the baby at 12 weeks. I remembered. Delilah, devastated, crying for days. Me trying to comfort her, buying her that diamond pendant she'd wanted, taking time off work to be present. What about it? There was no baby, Thad. She was never pregnant. The room tilted slightly. That's not possible. She had doctor's appointments. She showed me ultrasound pictures. Bought online. $20 for a fake sonogram image. Monica's voice broke. She needed money for a trip to Napa with her friends. You'd said the budget was tight that quarter because of some business thing. So she invented a pregnancy, invented a miscarriage, and got you to give her an $85,000 grief gift that she immediately sold to fund 6 months of living like a celebrity. You're lying. I wish I was. But I watched her do it. She called me laughing about how easy you were to manipulate. Said you were so guilty about working long hours that you'd believe anything that made you feel like a bad husband. Monica pulled out her phone. I saved the text messages. I don't know why. Maybe I knew someday I'd need them. She handed me the phone. I read through messages from 3 years ago. Just told T about the miscarriage. He's devastated. Mission accomplished. He bought me the pendant and a trip to Sedona. Easiest $85,000 I ever made. You should try this with Richard. Men are so stupid when you cry. I handed the phone back, hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. Why are you telling me now? Because she called me yesterday. Asked me to testify that you forced her to sign legal documents she didn't understand. Asked me to lie under oath to save her from fraud charges. Monica stood up. I won't do it. She's my sister, but what she's done to you, to your kids, to your father's memory, it's unforgivable. Will you give a statement to my attorney? Already did. Called Ruth Kellerman this morning. Gave her everything. The fake pregnancy texts, emails about her planning to divorce you while she was pretending everything was fine, conversations about her trying to manipulate Adelaide and Jameson. She moved toward the door. There's one more thing. The abortion. I stood up slowly. What abortion? 2 years ago. She got pregnant. Actually pregnant this time. Didn't tell you. Had an abortion at a clinic in New Jersey. Paid cash so insurance wouldn't show it. She told me she wasn't going to ruin her body for a baby that would just tie her to you longer. The words hit like physical blows. Monica continued. Then last year, another one. Same clinic. Same reasoning. She'd tell you she was at yoga retreats or wine tastings. She was terminating pregnancies while telling you she wanted children. After Monica left, I sat in the dark for an hour. Then I called Ruth. We need to add everything Monica provided to the case file. I said, voice hollow. Already on it. Thad, this isn't just fraud anymore. This is systematic psychological abuse, financial exploitation, reproductive coercion through deception. Ruth stopped. Are you okay? No, I said honestly. But I will be. After this is over. It will be over. And she'll face every consequence she earned. I looked at my father's photo again. Wondered what he'd think of all this. Then I remembered something he told me after Mom died. Son, some people take from you. Some people give to you. Know the difference, and act accordingly. I knew the difference now. The Westchester County District Attorney's Office called on a Tuesday morning. Assistant DA named Sarah Park wanted to meet. I agreed to her office, 2 p.m. that afternoon. Park was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had 3 folders stacked on her desk when I arrived. Mr. Cunningham, thank you for coming. She gestured to a chair. I've spent the last week reviewing everything your attorney provided. The trust fraud, the fake pregnancy, the asset dissipation, the beneficiary manipulation. It's quite comprehensive. My father taught me to document everything, I said. He taught you well. She opened the top folder. What your wife attempted constitutes multiple felonies. Real estate fraud, wire fraud, insurance fraud through the fake pregnancy claim. The question is how we proceed. I want her to face consequences. Understood. But we need to discuss what that looks like realistically. Park pulled out documents. The trust fraud is solid. She attempted to sell property she explicitly disclaimed ownership of. That's clear-cut. The fake pregnancy is trickier. You gave her the money voluntarily, even if based on lies. So she gets away with that. Not exactly. It establishes pattern of deception, supports the fraud charges, makes her claims of misunderstanding impossible to believe. She flipped pages. The beneficiary manipulation with your children, attempting to remove them from your will through coercion. That's undue influence. Also prosecutable. What are you recommending? We file fraud charges related to the property. We include the pattern evidence, fake pregnancy, social media fraud, systematic asset theft. We push hard. She leaned forward. But Mr. Cunningham, you need to understand what this means. Criminal trial. Media coverage. Your private life becomes public record. I'm aware. Your pharmaceutical company might get questions about your judgment. Your children will be called to testify. Every detail of your marriage gets examined in court. She watched my face. Some people decide the civil divorce is enough. They walk away, take their assets, move on. I thought about my father's house. About Adelaide and Jameson, manipulated and erased. About the $85,000 Delilah stole through fake tears over a non-existent baby. File everything, I said. She made choices. She faces consequences. Park nodded slowly. Then we proceed. Formal charges by end of week. Arrest warrant issued. She'll be arraigned, probably released on bail, but it'll be public record immediately. Her attorney knows this is coming. We notified him this morning. He requested meeting to negotiate. We declined. She smiled slightly. He called back an hour later, saying his client wants to make a statement. We're recording it tomorrow. She's going to confess. She's going to try to spin it. Claim you controlled her, manipulated her, forced her to sign things she didn't understand. Standard abuse defense. Park tapped the folders. Won't work. We have her emails calling you an ATM machine. Her texts laughing about the fake pregnancy. Her Instagram messages about living her authentic truth, funded by your money. What's the likely outcome? Plea deal eventually. She'll plead to reduce charges, get probation and restitution. Maybe some jail time if she refuses to cooperate. Park closed the folders. But the conviction stays on a record, and civil court will see it all when dividing assets. Meaning she gets nothing. Marital misconduct, fraud, systematic theft. Judges don't reward that behavior. You'll keep your assets. She'll leave with whatever she came into the marriage with, which based on Ruth's research, wasn't much. After the meeting, I walked through downtown White Plains. Thought about the moment this all started, Delilah's email in London, while I celebrated a career milestone. Her casual cruelty, assuming I'd just accept it. She gambled that I wouldn't fight back, that I'd be too proud, or too busy, or too worried about appearances to pursue consequences. She gambled wrong. My phone rang. Jameson calling. Dad, Delilah's lawyer just called me. Said she wants to talk to Adelaide and me. Apologize. Explain herself. What did you tell him? That all communication goes through your attorney. Then I hung up. He paused. She's scared, isn't she? She's facing criminal charges. Yes, she's scared. Good. She should be. His voice hardened with an anger I'd never heard before. She tried to erase Mom's memory. Tried to steal Grandpa's house. Manipulated us. She deserves everything coming to her. I know, son. It'll be over soon. Then what? What do we do after? We rebuild. We remember what matters. We move forward. After we hung up, I stood looking at the courthouse where Delilah would soon be arraigned, where her carefully constructed facade would shatter completely. My father once said, the truth doesn't need defense. Just time and documentation. The time was here. The documentation was complete. Now came the truth. The arrest happened on a Thursday morning at 6:47 a.m. I know because Ruth called me at 6:50. It's done. Westchester County Sheriff served the warrant at her apartment. She's in custody. I was drinking coffee in my temporary apartment, preparing for a pharmaceutical conference call. How'd she react? According to the deputy, she screamed that you were destroying her life. Said she'd done nothing wrong. Then asked if she could post bail immediately. Ruth's voice carried grim satisfaction. Bail hearings at 2 p.m. Judge will likely release her on recognizance, given the nonviolent charges. But the arrest record is permanent. Media. County courthouse reporter was there. Story hits local news by noon, regional by evening. Your name will be mentioned as the victim of fraud, but focus will be on her charges. The story broke at 11:23 a.m. Westchester woman arrested for real estate fraud. Attempted theft of trust property. By noon, 3 news outlets had picked it up. By 2 p.m., when Delilah appeared before the judge, cameras were outside the courthouse. Adelaide called at 2:47 p.m., voice tight. "Dad, it's everywhere." Local Facebook groups, news sites, even some of the pharmaceutical industry newsletters. Everyone knows. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Getting messages from people asking if it's true. "I'm telling them to read the public records." She paused. "Some of Delilah's old friends are messaging me, saying they suspected something was off, that she bragged about her lifestyle, but never seemed to actually work." "What are you telling them?" "That she systematically defrauded our family for years and is now facing legal consequences." Some are shocked. Others are saying they're not surprised. Jameson called an hour later from his Philadelphia office. "Dad, my boss just asked me about it. Someone sent in the news article. He wanted to know if I needed time off." "Do you?" "No. I told him the situation, that you're handling it appropriately, and that I'm focused on work." He was actually supportive. Said his sister went through something similar. Husband stealing from family trust. How'd that end? "Prison. 2 years federal time for wire fraud." Jameson's voice shifted. "Think Delilah will do time?" "Depends on the plea deal. Park thinks probation and restitution, most likely." "That doesn't seem like enough." "It's not about enough, son. It's about establishing truth and protecting what Dad left us. The criminal record does that. She'll carry this conviction for life." By 5 p.m., Delilah's Instagram had gone dark. All posts deleted. Accounts set to private. Her followers, real and fake, were messaging each other, sharing screenshots of her old posts about authentic living and manifesting abundance. Someone had created a parody account, Delilah's Real Life. It posted her booking photo alongside old Instagram posts. Caption: "Manifesting felony charges. Hashtag authentic living, hashtag fraud life, hashtag blessed." Ruth called at 6 p.m. "Thad, Brennan withdrew as her attorney. Conflict of interest. He says she lied to him about material facts. She's scrambling to find new representation." "Will she find someone?" "Eventually. But no one good will touch this case. Too much evidence, too much documentation. She'll end up with whoever needs the billable hours and doesn't care about losing." What happens next? Preliminary hearing in 3 weeks. Discovery phase where her new attorney sees the full scope of evidence. Then plea negotiations. Ruth paused. "Thad, she's going to lose everything. Her reputation, her social circle, her freedom to travel, her ability to get credit or housing. This follows her forever. She made the choices." "I know. Just want you to understand how complete this destruction is." I looked at my father's photo on my temporary desk. Thought about his house, still standing in Millbrook. Still protected. Still full of memories she'd want to liquidate. "She tried to destroy what my father built," I said quietly. "Fair that she faces destruction in return." "Your father would agree," Ruth said. "He'd say justice isn't revenge. It's balance." That evening, I drove to Millbrook. Hadn't been there since before London. The house stood quiet in the fading light, exactly as Dad had left it. Wood paneling Delilah hated. Kitchen she called outdated. Porch where he'd taught me about integrity. I sat on that porch as darkness fell, listening to crickets, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "You destroyed me. I hope you're happy. Delilah." Reaching out from whatever hole she was hiding in. I typed back. "I protected my family. You destroyed yourself." Then I blocked the number, pocketed my phone, and sat in the silence of my father's house. The house she'd never touch, never sell, never erase. Some things, I'd learned, are worth fighting for. 8 months after the arrest, Delilah's new attorney called Ruth requesting a meeting. They wanted to discuss a plea agreement. Ruth invited me to her office for the conversation. Mitchell Brennan's replacement was a woman named Patricia Hale, late 50s, experienced in white-collar crime. She looked tired when she arrived. "Mr. Cunningham, my client wants to resolve this without trial. She's prepared to plead guilty to fraud charges in exchange for probation and restitution." "What restitution?" I asked. "Full return of the $85,000 from the fake pregnancy claim. Replacement value of the wine collection and art. Approximately $70,000. plus legal fees you've incurred defending against her fraudulent property sale. Ruth leaned forward. That's barely a third of actual damages. What about the trust fund money she diverted from his children? The Instagram fraud spending? The systematic asset dissipation? Hale shifted uncomfortably. My client has limited means to pay more. She's currently unemployed and unemployable in her previous field. The pharmaceutical industry has blacklisted her after your son circulated information about her fraud conviction. That wasn't revenge, I said. That was protecting an industry from a demonstrated fraud. Regardless, she can't pay what she doesn't have. Hale pulled out documents. The plea deal includes 5 years probation, 200 hours community service, permanent fraud conviction on her record, and a restraining order preventing contact with you or your children. Prison time, Ruth asked. Suspended sentence. 2 years, suspended contingent on successful completion of probation. If she violates terms, she goes to prison immediately. I looked at Ruth. She gave a slight nod. This was probably the best realistic outcome. What does she give up in the divorce? I asked. Everything. She waives all claims to marital assets, your retirement accounts, the Westchester house, future earnings, everything. She leaves with what she brought into the marriage. Approximately $14,000 in personal savings. And the Millbrook property, explicitly acknowledged as trust property with zero claim from her. That acknowledgement becomes part of the public record. Ruth tapped her pen. We want one more thing. Public statement from your client acknowledging the fraud, apologizing to Mr. Cunningham and his children, and admitting she attempted to sell property she knew she didn't own. Hale winced. That's a big ask. It's non-negotiable, I said. She humiliated my family publicly. She gets to own it publicly. Hale made notes. I'll discuss with my client. 2 weeks later, the plea agreement was signed. Delilah stood before Judge Raymond Kowalski in Westchester County Court and read a prepared statement. I acknowledge that I committed fraud against my husband Thaddeus Cunningham and his family. I attempted to sell property held in trust that I had no legal right to transfer. I fabricated a pregnancy and miscarriage to obtain money under false pretenses. I manipulated my stepchildren and attempted to remove them from their father's will. I systematically stole marital assets to fund a lifestyle I hadn't earned. I accept full responsibility for my actions and apologize to the Cunningham family for the harm I caused. Her voice was flat, emotionless, required words without genuine remorse. But they were public record now, recorded and filed. Judge Kowalski accepted the plea, imposed 5 years probation, and issued the restraining order. Ms. Brennan, he said, she'd taken back her maiden name. You've admitted to systematic fraud against a family that welcomed you. You betrayed trust, manipulated children, and attempted to steal property protected by a man who survived war to build something meaningful. You're fortunate this court is showing leniency. I suggest you use these 5 years to reflect on the person you've become. Outside the courthouse, Adelaide and Jameson waited. It's really over? Adelaide asked. The legal part is, I said. The rest is just moving forward. What happens to her now? Jameson asked. She starts over with nothing. No reputation, no money, no connections. Exactly what she tried to do to us. We drove to Millbrook that afternoon. All 3 of us. First time the kids have been back since everything started. The house stood unchanged. Same wood paneling, same outdated kitchen, same memories. Why'd she hate this place so much? Adelaide asked, running her hand along the porch railing. Because she only saw dollar signs. Never understood what it represented. What does it represent? Jameson asked. I looked at my children, standing in the place their grandfather built. Permanence. Integrity. The idea that some things matter more than money. We spent the afternoon there, cleaning and organizing, remembering. As the sun set, we sat on the porch where Dad used to sit. What now, Dad? Adelaide asked. Now we rebuild. I moved back to the Westchester house. You two continue building your careers. We remember what Grandpa taught us, which is, that family isn't just blood. It's protection. It's showing up. It's building something that lasts beyond one lifetime. The crickets started their evening song. Somewhere far away, Delilah was starting her probation, her life in ruins. Here, we were together, protected, whole. The Thornfield Pharmaceuticals board meeting ran long, but I didn't mind. We were announcing breakthrough trial results for a cardiac medication that could save thousands of lives annually. The work that had taken me away from home so often, the deals that had seemed to justify Delilah's resentment, they were producing real results. After the meeting, our CEO pulled me aside. "Thad, the board wants to offer you Senior Executive Vice President. It comes with oversight of international operations and a seat on the executive committee. That's quite an offer. You've earned it. The London deal opened European markets. Your work on the cardiac trials has been exemplary. And frankly, the way you handled your personal crisis with such professionalism impressed everyone." I accepted, shook hands, and drove home to Westchester. The house I'd almost lost, now fully mine again. I'd redecorated after Delilah stripped it. New furniture, new art, new memories without her shadow. Adelaide was visiting for the weekend, coming up from Manhattan, where she'd made junior partner at her law firm. Jameson was bringing his new girlfriend, a woman he'd met through mutual pharmaceutical industry friends. We gathered in the dining room I'd reclaimed. Eating dinner I'd actually cooked myself. "Dad's becoming domestic," Jameson teased. "Your grandfather cooked every meal after your grandmother died." Figured I should learn. I looked at my children, successful and strong. "How's work, Addie?" "Good. Actually, I got offered a case this week. Trust litigation. Family fighting over estate assets. Made me think of Grandpa and how his planning saved us. He was ahead of his time. More than that, he understood people. Understood that not everyone who says they love you actually does." She paused. "Have you heard anything about Delilah?" Ruth mentioned she's working retail somewhere in Pennsylvania. Living in a small apartment, complying with probation requirements. Keeping low profile. Think she learned anything? I think she learned consequences are real. Whether she learned why they matter, that's different. Jameson's girlfriend Emma asked carefully, "Do you regret any of it? The prosecution, the public exposure?" "No," I said without hesitation. She tried to destroy what my father built. She manipulated my children. She would have erased everything that mattered to fund a fantasy life. I protected my family. That's never wrong. Later, after everyone left, I drove to Millbrook. The house had become my sanctuary. Weekends spent there, away from corporate demands. Just quiet reflection. I sat on the porch with a glass of bourbon, my father's favorite brand. "You be proud of them," I said to the evening air. "Adelaide's a partner. Jameson's thriving. They're good people, strong people." The wind moved through the trees. And the house, it's still here, still protected, still full of everything you taught me about what matters. My phone showed a message from Ruth. "Final divorce decree signed today. You're officially free." Free. Strange word for ending a 16-year marriage. But accurate. Free from deception. Free from manipulation. Free from someone who saw my life as resources to extract. I thought about the man I'd been in London, reading that email, feeling that initial shock. How far I'd traveled from that moment. How much I'd learned about protection, consequence, and what it means to really defend what matters. A car pulled up, Adelaide coming back. "Forgot my laptop," she explained, then saw my face. "You okay?" "More than okay. Actually at peace." She sat beside me on the porch. "Grandpa built something good here. He built something permanent. That's rarer than good." We sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, in a house that survived everything. The house that represented everything Delilah couldn't understand and couldn't destroy. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle sounded. Life moving forward, as it always does. But here, on this porch, in this house, with my daughter beside me, this was permanence. This was victory. This was home.